Brian?
Okay. Welcome everyone to this cyber meeting of the Greenwich Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. The date is April 27th, 2020, and we are meeting via Zoom. First order of business, first order of business is a roll call so that we know who is in attendance. So when you hear your name, if you could respond, please. Elliot Benton.
Here.
William Galvin.
Here.
Jay Schoendorf.
You're muted, Jay.
I'm here.
Okay. Joe Rogers.
Yeah.
Okay. Stefan Skoufalos.
You're muted.
Here.
Thank you, Stefan. Norma Curlin.
Here.
Okay. Klaus Jander.
Here.
Okay. Peter Linderoth.
Here.
Excellent. And Alan Rossi.
Here.
Great. And Brian Harris is here. Since we do have a full house today, the alternate members will not be seated, but please feel free to comment on any of the applications tonight. Next order of business is the review and approval of the draft minutes of February 24th, 2020. As
Brian?
Yes.
One, I'd like the record to reflect that Patricia Sesto, Robert Clausey, and Doreen Carroll Andrews, staff members, are in attendance. And if I may, I wanted to run through the virtual meeting ground rules.
Oh,
so
please.
Members
Okay.
know what to expect. So the agency members and staff are considered panelists, and we can unmute ourselves, and the public are attendees, and they can only speak when a co-host invites them to do so. So for the duration, if people can be diligent about muting when you are not speaking, and likewise remember to unmute when you do speak, and if you could raise your hand, that will allow Brian to then call on you during the presentations. And likewise for attendees, you will also need to raise your hand. Each application will be introduced, and the applicant's agents will be unmuted and invited to join the panel to enable their video. Doreen will share her screen with the corresponding map so that we all can see that. The staff member, which will principally be Bob, per usual, and then Doreen as well, will describe the project and then turn the presentation over to the applicant, very much like our normal protocol. Then turn to agency questions using the raised hand. Each time you speak, please state your name. This is needed for the recording of the meeting and then the transcript of the meeting. When the agency and staff are finished with their questions, the public will be asked to raise their hands if they have a question or comment. Mr. Harris will unmute and will ask them to unmute themselves and ask them to state their name. Then go ahead with their question or comment. If there are inappropriate comments, that speaker will be muted and disabled and then removed from the meeting. All the votes will be taken via roll call. Panelists, again, should mute themselves when you're not speaking. And please keep your video enabled because this meeting is being recorded. So that's that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Pat. Okay, so now on to the review and approval of the draft minutes of the February 24th, 2020 meeting. Have all the agency members received a copy and had opportunities to review? You can just nod your heads and I will see it. Okay, I'm seeing head nods. Are there any questions or amendments to said minutes? Otherwise, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Rogers. Joe Rogers makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Bill Galvin.
Bill Galvin seconds. All in favor? Actually, I'm sorry, I will go on. Elliot Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Galvin, seconded.
Yes.
Mr. Schoendorf,
Yes.
okay. Mr. Rogers made the motion. Ms. Skoufalos,
I was not in attendance, so I'll abstain.
okay. Ms. Curlin,
Yes.
Mr. Jander, Klaus, are you approving the minutes?
You're muted, Kraus.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, very good. Mr. Linderoth
Yes.
and Mr. Rossi.
Yes, I'm a little confused about that because if I'm not seated,
Oh, that's true.
how
That
can
is
I
true.
vote? However, I have a comment.
Oh, please.
I'm sorry that it took me so long to mention it, but when we discussed application 2019-109, 249 Valley Road for a two-lot subdivision, and we voted on this, I abstained. I did not approve this. And I
Okay,
would like the minutes to reflect that.
okay. Very good. So let the final minutes show that Mr. Rossi abstained from the vote on 2019-109. Are there any other questions or comments?
Hang on one second. I had a feeling that was, that's already reflected in the minutes. It was carried 6-0-1, Alan Rossi abstained. That is written in the February
Okay,
4th minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, the version I read did not reflect that.
Yeah.
On page 10.
okay. So the minutes do not need to be
Okay.
altered, and the motion carries. Okay, next up is Director's Report. Patricia, if you would.
The staff for the agency has been working remotely since mid-March. Each person has full access to their laptop through GoToMyPC. So all the files, everything, it's pretty cool. We just like sitting at our desk, except more boring because we're by ourselves. And I would say the staff has really been doing a fantastic job of functioning from home, coming into the office when necessary, getting field work done. Each day, one person from the office, just like normal, is assigned to the counter. We have a generic web address of wetlands@greenwichct.org. So questions come into that just like normal. Do I have wetlands? Do I need a green sheet? We've upgraded our green sheet to be a fillable PDF, which just makes it very easy to return that to us. So each day the counter person works through those emails and is done by day's end. So that's functioning very much just like a normal counter. We've also coordinated this with the building department, health department, and zoning. So the referrals that come in with the checklist when somebody's trying to get a permit, again, processed the same way. And then we've got a system to respond back to the building department so they know that either we need them, we need the applicant to get a permit or to go ahead and process that building permit. New applications have been coming in, and our applications coordinator has been processing those without any problems. The applicants submit electronically and then file up by mailing hard copies in. So again, that process has been moving along well. You'll see by tonight's agenda, there is a lot of applications since we last met. So it's been 2 months. Lots of applications have been processed. Total kudos to Bob. He has been indispensable during this process. He has taken on the managing of the applications, determining what can be consent, what can be agent. We've had discussions about pushing some of the boundaries of agent approval. So if it's on the line, we'll make it an agent approval. Likewise for consent approvals in our efforts to get the agency to function well under these conditions. But Bob has really done a fabulous job. Likewise, Doreen has been completely excellent in her handling of coordinating the field work. 'Tis the season for violations, so those are starting to come in. She has made sure that our intern is working, that Jen Urena has work to be done. She's been out continuing to do field inspections, so that matrix you'll see in her report, our inspection rate is right on board with what it is most other months. The cease and desist orders, we've been utilizing a notice of violation instead, so that we don't have to do that show cause hearing within the 10 days. And this is when Doreen is working with a potential violator. Working with a violator who she believes has been cooperative, it intends to be cooperative. The notice of violation system allows her to keep the violation process moving forward without the cease and desist. So that, again, allows a little bit more flexibility. So Jen Urena, who's our other compliance, for the assistant compliance officer, she has kept her levels of inspection up, and I get to see the correspondence between staff and many of our public and applicants, and it has just been moving very smoothly. Jen, very nicely, has completed her DEP training course. So we're under other business, I'm going to be asking the agency to approve Jen as an authorized agent of the agency. She has been working with Bob thus far to draft the staff reports for agent approval. So she is fully up to speed, both technically from the DEP's perspective, as well as in working with Bob. So everything else, the administrative staff has been working right along to keep their responsibilities up and moving. So I really feel like we're in terrific shape and have done as best we can, really, given the circumstances. Lots of things keep moving along. That being said, the downside is our budget. So we certainly are not going to be collecting the same level of application fees, as there's only been 5 applications coming in for acceptance tonight. So I think that that's going to remain a little lower as we at least go through the end of this fiscal year. Our fiscal 2021 budget, we've been asked to hold it flat, meaning 0% increase. We had submitted a budget that was just under 2%, in keeping with the previous guidelines of submitting a budget at 2% or lower. And now we're being asked to cut it back further to 0. Given that our budget is made up almost entirely of salaries, and the other things that we have in our budget, such as legal notices and supplies, we really propose our request to fund those line items pretty close to the bone. There's very little set. So coming up with, I think it's going to be $6,500 isn't going to be easy. Even though it's not a lot of money, we don't have a lot of places to pull from. So I'll be working to see how that's going to be going forward. Right now, we are scheduled to have Town Hall remain closed through May 20th. There, as of last week, when we were in the office, or I was in the office, there were workmen around. We're going to be getting the plexiglass shields between us and the public at the counters, and they're all on a May 20th. At the time, they were on a May 20th reopen target, although after that, the governor came out and announced that as of May 20th is when the recommendations to him about how to start reopening were going to come. So in all likelihood, I think we'll have another virtual meeting in May, if not also June. So that's how it's going to roll. So that's what I got. Very pleased.
Great. Thank you, Pat, and kudos to you and the entire team for keeping things moving like they have, and congratulations to Jen with your wetlands training behind you. Let's move on to the quarterly compliance report. Doreen, if you would, please.
Okay, so this is the first quarterly compliance summary covering January, February, and March 2020. The green sheet summary of 149 submitted over the 3 months, 6 of them required a permit. 50 properties did have wetlands, but the activities were either very minimal or well removed and didn't require a permit. There were a similar number of green sheets for the same time period last year, 149 versus 164. We received a total of 37 new applications over the 3 months. 18 were agent approval. Last year during the same time frame, there were 33 applications and 7 agent approvals. As Pat had mentioned, the increase in agent approvals during the current period is due to an effort to move forward any activities with less disturbance or that are further removed from the wetlands due to the limited limitations presented by the coronavirus. Let's see. I'm sorry, just bear with me for a second.
Sure. Take your time.
Okay, so there were 55 permit files that were reviewed for bond release between January and March. 52 were requested, 3 were initiated by staff. 34 were ultimately eligible for release. For the same time period last year, we reviewed 22 files. 21 of those were released. A total of 378 site inspections were completed over the 3 months. This time last year, we did nearly 100 sites less, but this is attributed to losing our assistant compliance officer, Lindsay Tomazinski, to a new position. This year, due to COVID-19, the second quarterly review covering April, May, and June will be more telling to determine our ability to maintain site work during the pandemic. As of now, we've conducted about 94 inspections for the month of April, which is pretty close to being on track for our goal of 100 site inspections for each month. There are some unmet deadlines. 37 Baldwin Farms North needs to remove additional fill from the wetland buffer and to install additional plantings. I'm working with the authorized agent to finalize that requirement. I've been in contact with the owners of 175 Cat Rock Road, and I'm working with them to come into compliance with their order. The 5-year drainage inspection reports we haven't received several of those. I spoke with Scott Marucci, the senior civil engineer for DPW, who stated that they are also having a similar problem. They're working toward meeting with the law department on how to proceed. But with the change of the town attorney and with the COVID-19, that meeting date is uncertain. He will keep us posted on the development of that, but in the meantime, I have renoticed the property owners with the deadline to submit for their 5-year drainage reports. The remaining deadlines are being addressed, but we have provided a little leniency due to the pandemic. We've had 5 violations over the past 3 months, which is the same for the time period of last year. 53 Shady Lane involved deposition of landscaping debris near a watercourse on state-owned property. There's also a no dumping sign posted by the town of Greenwich in this location. The material's only been partially removed, so there needs to be a follow-up required for that. Applications 188 Bedford Road, 94 Pexland Road, and 0 Round Hill Road are pending. The application for 33 John Street is being received at tonight's meeting. That completes the compliance summary.
Okay. Thank you, Doreen. Next order of business.
Brian, excuse
Yes.
me. I tried to put my hand up. Did I?
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I wasn't.
No.
Yes.
I just had a question for Doreen, and I'm asking this, Doreen, putting on my RTM hat, recognizing that there is tremendous dislocation, as you've indicated, because of the COVID situation. And you made passing reference to the fact that our town council has changed recently, et cetera, all of which slow things down. But my question is, are we feeling reasonably confident that our inspection process and our follow-up inspection process is where it needs to be. I ask that in the context that it's an increasing subject among and some of the various RTM discussions, because so many building projects in the town seem to be having discrepancies between the nature of the project as approved and the as-built. And I'm just red flagging the fact that I just hope we're doing as good a job as we can under the circumstances to make sure that what we approve ultimately does get built the way we approve it. You know, the planting plans, et cetera, et cetera. So just making a comment.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised, so we'll go on. Next order of business is we have a motion. Pat, would you like to make the motion? This is for Jen to be made an authorized agent of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency.
So the suggested motion would be to approve Jen Urena as an authorized agent of the agency.
Okay, very good. That is the motion.
This is Elliot.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Jay seconds. I will say Mr. Benton is approved. Mr. Galvin, do you approve?
Yes.
Mr. Schoendorf?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Skoufalos?
Yes.
Ms. Curlin?
Yes.
And then, well, might as well go. Mr. Jander?
Yes.
Mr. Linderoth and Mr. Rossi.
As alternates, we don't need their.
Yep.
You don't need ours, right? Okay.
No.
But I'm happy for it. Good news.
Yep. Very good news. Congratulations, Jen. Okay, moving on. That is the agency session. We will move on to public hearings. First on the docket is 2019-153, 42 Dublin Hill Road, Rocco V. D'Andrea, Inc. for LMB Dublin Hill, LLC for construction of single-family residence driveway and wetland crossing, pool, septic system, and drainage within and adjacent to wetlands. Mr. Clausy, is there anything you want to add? Although the applicant is requesting a continuation at this point.
No, that's correct. They're requesting a delay, and they're also requesting an extension to the review period. Their second 65 days of the public hearing ends May 6th, so the agency has...
Okay, we can invoke our 90-day extension effective that date. Is that correct?
Yes, as of May 6th, sure.
Okay. So I will make a motion to invoke the 90-day extension effective May 6th. We will ask for public comment as well after this motion. Is there a second?
Second. Joe Rogers.
Joe Rogers seconds. And again, I'll go through the list. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Galvin.
Approve.
Ms. Schoendorf. Yes, you made the motion. Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Skoufalos.
Yes.
Ms. Curlin.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Motion passes. Is there anything that the applicant wants to add at this point, or should we just go to attendees? Which I do not, for some reason, the format on my screen has changed since.
So if you.
Oh, there we go. I see now. Okay.
Participants, yeah.
Very good. Let me open this up to any of the attendees who would like to comment on this application at this time. Please raise your hand. Okay. I'm not seeing any.
Yeah.
So with that, we will move on. to the next item. Next up is 2020-010, 306 Round Hill Road, SC Minor and Company, Inc., and Eric Brower, AICP, for Christopher Pollock for maintenance of a dam, dry hydrant, and installation of restoration plantings within wetland and a water course.
I'm going to promote Eric Brower and Larry Liebman.
Larry. Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Very good. Bob, is there anything you need to say on this? I understand that we haven't received any new information.
We did receive a letter today from Mr. Brower, so he's here. I'll let him speak for himself. We also received some copies of correspondence between the applicant's agents and the head of the Fisheries Division at the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and subsequent correspondence between the director and Mr. Gephardt up at DEEP, which I don't know whether we want to discuss now or let the applicant speak first.
Oh, I think we can let Mr. Brower say his piece. If Mr. Brower, are you
Yes.
interested? Okay.
Okay. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
For some reason, my camera is not working, but if you can hear me, that's a good start. So we've been in contact recently by email with the staff, providing updates. Obviously, the circumstances with coronavirus have hampered a lot of our team coordination on getting things done, but we have been working on the on our submission, and the letter I sent to both Pat and Bob this afternoon confirm from our side that we should be able to provide everything by April 12th, that hopefully will give time for staff review and comment before the next hearing. So we're putting together nearly complete on the landscape restoration plan, enhancement plan, the issue of remapping where the floodway was, where we believe is incorrectly shown now, as well as getting details on the dry hydrant. And one of the issues that, as Bob noted, we did reach out to DEEP on the what would be involved in adding a fish ladder as one of the alternatives that we're exploring in terms of the option of proposing to maintain the dam. So he's provided some information and suggestions that we need to digest and then get back to him. And obviously we'll be sharing that as part of our discussion on the pros and cons of different alternatives.
Okay. Go ahead. Pat, did you want to say something?
No, Bob has his hand raised.
Okay, please, Bob.
Yeah, Bob Clossie. I just would ask Mr. Brower and Mr. Liebman to provide any new information they have as soon as they have it, because giving the information to us May 12th, when the meeting is May 18th, is going to be tight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that we have a shorter than 4-week spacing between meetings, I guess, just on how schedules work. But anyhow, we can, yes, whatever component of that list that I just rattled off, if that, as soon as those items are available, we'll submit them separately to you.
Okay, and then Brian Harris here. Mr. Brower, if you would, part of the information that we're going to want to see is why, unless you are recommending removing the dam, why removal of the dam is not considered a prudent and feasible alternative. That would be good to include in the materials that you provide.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Okay, let me see. I see any other panelists have questions at this point. I don't see any hands raised. I will go to attendees. I do not see any attendees with their hands raised. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment at this point? No? Okay. We will keep this hearing open and move on. Next up is 2020-013, 8 Hickory Drive, Soundview Engineers and Land Surveyors, LLC, for Yuri Softman for construction of a single-family residence, driveway, drainage, and relocation of a water course. Also note that the applicant has requested a 65-day extension of the public hearing and asked that this be continued to May. But is there any additional information that you want to share, Bob?
Yes, I think the agency has to take a vote on this extension because the first 35 days ended March 30th. And as you know, our office was closed. The applicant made their request for extension April 15th. It seems reasonable to me, given the circumstances, I'd recommend the agency allow that extension, that 65-day extension.
Okay. Is there a reason to not invoke our 90-day at this point, or?
Well, we could always use that later if we had to.
True.
Right?
True.
Yeah, use the normal process first and then move on to the extra.
Okay. Very good. All right. Would someone like to make a motion regarding the extension?
I'll make the motion to approve the 65-day extension.
Okay.
Second. Bill Galvin, second.
Bill Galvin seconds. Okay. Elliot Benton, do you concur?
Approved.
Okay. I'm going to skip Bill and Jay. Joe Rogers,
Yes.
Stefan Skoufalos,
Aye.
Norma Curlin,
Yes.
Klaus Jander. I'm sorry, we don't need to go to you guys.
Bill or Brian, this is Pat Sesto. I believe Joe Rogers made the
Yes.
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So then we
Okay.
need Jay's vote.
Jay, are you in?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote affirmatively as well. Okay. Very good.
And this is Pat Sesto again. Is that for 2020-013 and 014?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Next up are consent approvals. We have 6, 2020-006, 2020-016, 2020-020, 2020-038, 2020-040, and 2020-045. Anyone have any questions on any of the consent approvals? Norma, you raised your hand.
Yes, this regards 2020-020. I'm not exactly sure that this is a wetlands issue, but I was curious to know whether the veterinarian, Dr. Gordon, was aware that, given the huge size of this dog and the fact that there would be a 6-inch, gap between the ground and the bottom of the fence, whether she was aware of that. This is a huge dog. I have a similar type dog, and that would not be a safe feature for containing a dog. I mean, it's not a wetlands issue. I was just curious to know whether or not she was aware that there would be this little 6-inch gap.
Well, I guess it's supposed to be a deer fence, not a dog fence, right? Unless they're.
Yeah.
Bob Clossy, would you like me to address Ms. Curlin?
Yes,
please.
I don't know that the veterinarian was aware of that. This is almost like a public safety issue, apparently. So if, the applicant came back and said, gosh, we can't have a 6-inch gap throughout the fence or something, I think that would be sort of a compliance issue that we could work out with them. I haven't heard anything from them. I know they wanted to get right on and build the fence. I think they did so.
Okay.
Okay, as long as you're aware that there's an issue, I'm sure it'll be worked out.
What's the relationship, this is Bill Galvin, what's the relationship between the deer fence and the cedar fence that's indicated? Do they run in parallel or what?
As I recall the plan, the cedar fence was an existing fence along the sort of the Riverside School side of the property. And then the deer fence was going to be an extension across the back and across the other side of the side yard. So it's pre-existing.
Well, having looked up the size of this dog, I concur with Norma that this is a very large dog that would go right through a deer fence, I would think.
Okay.
I don't know whose problem that is, but
Hopefully not one of the neighbor's kids.
well, if we're
Okay.
approving the fence though, do we have some responsibility to double check and make sure all parties are aware of what's involved here? No, Pat's shaking her head.
I mean, I assume we're approving this to keep deer out of the quarter-acre parcel that this house is. So I'm not sure if a dog consideration is part of our consideration set at this point.
This is Pat Sesto. So we're approving what we're asked by way of the application. And as Bob indicated, if they come back and say that the deer fence is supposed to do dual purpose to contain the dog and the 6-inch gap is problematic, then that would be a legitimate reason to not utilize our normal 6-inch gap and allow it to go to the ground to contain the dog.
So what's the next step? Do we have a conversation with the owner or not?
We can certainly check in with the owner proactively.
I'm just thinking, is the owner thoroughly aware of the 6-inch gap in a mesh fence?
Or do they need to put a rigid rail at the bottom 6 inches off the ground that fence ties into so the dog can't just push through it? So the detail may need to be modified.
So I would say we can proactively inform the applicant that we've got flexibility on this 6-inch gap if this is doing dual purpose to contain the dog, and then let them go from there. From that point on, to me, it's their decision of how to deal with the purpose of the fence and containing their dog.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, very good.
We had a vote on the consent agenda.
Yes, we did.
Make a motion to approve
Joe Rogers.
the 6 items on Joe Rogers, the 6 items on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Bill Galvin, second.
Very good. I'll call the roll. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Let's see. Mr. Schoendorf.
Approve.
Mrs. Skoufalos.
Aye.
Ms. Curlin. Norma, are you in? You approve this? Yes, I see a nod. Okay. Very good. Moving on to pending applications. We have 2 tonight. First is 2020-007, 43 Lockwood Lane. Michael DeVito for Teresa Coder for maintenance of a culvert.
Okay, this is Doreen Carol Andrews. The applicant is proposing to maintain a replace culvert and driveway modification made without prior authorization from the agency. The work that was done around October 2019 was done to correct a frequent flooding of the driveway and resulting hardship imposed by the homeowner, Mrs. Coder. The application narrative prepared by Rocco V. DeAndrea, Inc. states that the larger pipe did not increase the capacity of the channel or reduce the elevation of ponding on either side of the driveway because the water surface elevation is controlled downstream in a shallow discharge channel. The northern end of the watercourse flows into a storm drain that discharges into the I-95 drainage system at Pleasant Street. According to the location survey provided by DeAndrea, that compares the 2011 to present conditions, the elevation of the culvert remains the same. For this reason, staff is recommending approving the request to maintain the modification, provided that maintenance outlined in the staff report is undertaken. During the site inspection, gravel was observed on both sides of the driveway, along the bank of the pond and the watercourse, some of which appears to have made its way into the watercourse. Small limbs just north of the culvert in the watercourse were also found. It's recommended that the agency require the applicant to remove gravel and provide mitigation of at least 2 to 3 shrubs on both sides of the driveway to secure soil, particularly in the area of the culvert. This would be a total of 4 to 6 shrubs installed by May 30, 2020. The limbs in the watercourse should also be removed by that time. All downstream neighbors along the watercourse were also inspected for blockages that may be affecting the ponding upstream. The required maintenance downstream will be handled outside the order to correct. There was a handwritten note submitted by Ms. Coder requesting a reduction or waiver of the triple filing fee due to the financial burden, which was 3 times $500 or $1,500. An issuance of an order to correct with the conditions outlined in the staff report is recommended.
Okay, thank you. Doreen, somehow I seem to have lost my panel attendees and panel view, so I'm not sure if someone from the applicant wants to speak this evening or not. Oh, I see Bob raised his hand, so.
And I'll check on the attendees.
Oh, there we go. Yes, Bob, please.
Okay, thank you, Bob Clossie. I would just add from my experience in this neighborhood and with this applicant that I've been with the agency since 2001. Almost from day one, I've known that this area floods out, the pond backs up and floods out. And from my experience with talking to Mrs. Coder, I know she has a history of having her driveway flooded to the point that she can't drive out. So, and I note in the staff report back in 1994, there was an application and permit issued to replace the culvert and resurface the driveway. So this was an ongoing issue. I know she had, she did this because she really felt she needed to do it. And I think in hindsight, she would have come to the agency, but she had somebody come and say they could do the work, and she hired them to do the work, and they did the work. Now, about the flooding, though, the flooding, as the DeAndrea plan shows, the culvert that was put in is at the same invert elevation as the culvert that was replaced. So the work on the driveway has not created more back flooding in that pond. And from my experience walking that watercourse, and Jen Urena confirmed this on her recent inspections, there are obstructions in that watercourse. And there are a couple spots where the watercourse is raised higher than the invert of the pipe. So the control point is not the pipe, it's the watercourse downstream. And we have tried in the past to get the abutting property owners who own portions of that watercourse to come in with a plan to work on the whole watercourse. And we will continue to try to get them to do that, because until that's done, the flooding situation of that pond is never going to change.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Bob. Any agency questions for Bob? No. Any attendees want to raise their hands on this one? Okay, so before us we have a request to reduce the 3 times rule on this application, which I feel is appropriate. So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to reduce from the 3 times to a one-time application fee of $500. I guess, and at this point, we also need to invoke a 90-day extension allocated by executive order. Is there a second?
I'd second it. Bill Galvin, second both of those.
Okay, discussion?
Elliot Benton, I have a question. Why do we, can't we just approve the issuance of the order to correct?
I guess that's a question for Bob. Is there anything we're waiting for?
The
We
recommendation.
have a recommendation for the
Marie's
shrubs.
application.
So there is a recommendation to issue an order to maintain the work that was done and to install some mitigation plantings.
Okay,
Okay, Bob Clossy, I think the order of business would be to grant the 90-day extension of review because the first 65 days expired April 1st.
Mhm.
And then you can decide how you want to deal with the matter of the order and the matter of the fee adjustment.
okay. So I'll make I'll withdraw my original motion and instead make a motion to invoke the 90-day order to extend from 90 days from April 1st, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
Elliot Benton, second.
Okay. I'll say that was Elliot. And then I'll go down the list. Mr. Galvin,
Yes.
Mr. Schoendorf,
Yes.
Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Mr. Skoufalos,
Yes.
Ms. Curlin. You can nod. You're muted, Norma. There we go. I just unmuted you. No.
Yeah. Doreen.
Okay. If you can, you say nodding. If you're nodding, then that's fine. Okay. So that passes. The next is there she is.
I wanted to say something other than in
okay.
addition to approving the motion, and that is, I'm not clear. I just didn't see specifics addressing the relief from the rate, and so I would like to ask that when that comes up next time, that there be, like a specific argument in favor of relief from the application fee. I just didn't see it anywhere.
Could I, Bob Clossy, address that? In the packets that went out to the agency on Thursday was a copy, and some people got it last month. There was a copy of a letter, handwritten letter from Mrs. Coderre. And I think if you read that letter, you see the sort of situation she's in. So again, these are matters up to the agency's discretion. But as I said, if she had been in a better position as far as, this condition of her property to wait to make an application, I'm sure she would have, but she had 2 guys came to her house and made her a deal she couldn't refuse on getting this work done that she really needed to have done.
Okay, that's good enough. I just didn't know. I didn't remember that background information.
Okay.
This is Pat Sesto. I think Mrs. Coderre is elderly, and she may not have a full understanding of all the regulations, despite the 1994 application and relief was knocking at her door literally for a situation that I think probably in her mind was the priority, was to get that dangerous situation corrected.
Okay, so with that, I will make a second motion to reduce the filing fee to $500 from $1,500, to approve the corrective action with the 4 to 6 additional shrubs, details of which to be worked out with staff.
I'll second that.
Okay. I will discussion. Okay, I'll go down the list. Mr. Benton,
Approve.
Mr. Galvin,
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf,
Approve.
Mr. Rogers,
Approve.
and Ms. Curlin.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, next up is 2020-008 12 Hillcrest Lane, Anneman Kirby LLC for Darren and Marianne Sloniker for modification of a driveway 15 feet from wetlands.
Okay, this is Doreen Carol Andrews. The applicant's proposing a driveway with a new entrance location that's shifted south into within 15 feet of a wetland and watercourse and a courtyard at the front of the residence. The driveway will be porous pavement except for the motor court that's in front of the garage, which will remain asphalt. The modification will require the removal of 3 trees within the upland review area and will have a net increase of about 862 square feet of impervious coverage. Disturbance includes filling and grading that will occur about 1 foot from the wetland and watercourse. To mitigate for the increase in impervious coverage, a detention system will be installed under the driveway. A tiered wall along the southern side of the driveway entrance is the most recent proposal. In an effort to reduce the significant amount of fill that's required along the wetland and stream under the previous proposal. The revision does reduce the amount of fill, but it does not reduce the amount of disturbance. It also brings the activity closer to the wetland to about 1 foot. The engineering division has reviewed this plan and found it acceptable, although they are going to require revisions. Previously, it was recommended that a more heavily landscaped buffer be included that includes trees and shrubs along both sides of the stream to mitigate the impacts of the driveway and improve the overall water quality in the stream by reducing erosion, filtering out fine particles and pollutants, enhancing infiltration and creating wildlife habitat, etc. A revised planting plan has been submitted that improves upon the previous plan. Although 3 understory trees, 16 shrubs, and about 3,900 plugs are proposed to restore the northern side of the stream, additional trees and shrubs could further increase the existing proposed buffer by about 20 to 25 feet to the area south of the residence and west of the proposed driveway entrance. A clear explanation of the possible or rejected alternatives for the driveway has been requested. Can the new courtyard be accessed from the current driveway entrance? Can the courtyard driveway entrance walls and fill be shifted to the north to allow a greater separating distance from the stream? Can the courtyard be reduced or eliminated? And can the current driveway be maintained as it is? The applicant should explain the benefits of shifting and implementing the impervious driveway and how this benefits the wetland and stream directly. According to DPW Engineering Division, the proposed driveway relocation is not a requirement of DPW. The applicant must meet the town standards when proposing a driveway relocation. If they keep the existing driveway location, the standards are still required to be met. But if some of the standards cannot be met, the driveway may be approved as an existing condition. An email was received last Thursday that addressed some of the issues raised in the staff report. I didn't get a full chance to review it thoroughly, but roughly the email states the new courtyard can be accessed from the current driveway, but it does not conform to any safety standards, and it's dangerous with a slope of 16%. And that the location of the driveway and courtyard are constricted by the existing grade plane walls and cannot be altered. The current driveway cannot be maintained as it is because the water from the road flows toward the house. There's no lip on the existing driveway and the slope does not conform to any of the safety standards. No additional options were explored since moving north only increases the driveway slope. The Great Plain Wall is a given. The only option was to shift the driveway down the width of one opening to allow a longer driveway, which flattens out the slope and the drive enough to conform to the engineering standards. The applicant, if present, would be able to more thoroughly review their responses for the agency members and staff. At this time, staff's recommending that the agency delay taking action on the application to give the applicant the opportunity to further answer these questions and any others that might be raised, with the knowledge that the application may be denied as there is the prudent and feasible alternative of maintaining the existing driveway.
Okay. Thank you, Doreen. Is there anyone from the applicant that wants to speak to this? Okay. I do see Christian Fontanella. I've unmuted you. Please state your name for the agency. And
Hello?
yes.
Hi, this is Christian Fontanella,
Okay.
representing the owners of 12 Hillcrest Lane. So for the comment that was given to us by Doreen, let me pull up the PDF.
Doreen, can you zoom into that area that we're looking at? So I don't think we really need to see the other part.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
So yeah, we just have a question regarding that. So for the first bullet, it says that it also brings the activity closer to the wetlands within 1 foot. Does that mean it's because of that contour? Does that mean it's because of that 116 contour at the bottom of the retaining wall, the double retaining wall near the stream?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
So for the this is a question for the first bullet. The last sentence says it also brings the activity closer to the wetland to within 1 foot, and we're wondering if that 1 foot is because of that grading below the double retaining wall near the stream.
Right, that would include any kind of disturbance, including grading and fill.
Oh, okay. So so that was just a refinement of the grade over there. If that would be counted as basically a big disturbance itself, we're just going to remove any of refinement over there. And then for the third bullet, yeah, so we have not provided any of those plans for removing all these trees in the courtyard, but yeah, we're going to show that on the revision. For the fourth one, I'm expecting our landscape architect to be here, but I don't think she's here. I don't know the list of who's here. Is there a way to
Let's see.
What's the architect's name?
Tom Oneman is here.
Oh, Tom is here.
Yes.
I think he has something to say as well. But Diane DeVore is the landscape architect that works around that courtyard and the planting plan.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yeah.
You are unmuted.
Okay, this is Tom Oneman. Yeah, Tom Oneman here representing the applicant. Thank you so much. Christian, you're not on video. Just to let you know. Okay, so the existing driveway is not usable. What we have is a finished floor that's 6 feet below the existing road. So to come in off the existing drive and try to get down to a courtyard, we end up with grades of 15%, or I think as Doreen said, 16%. So the use of the existing driveway is it's not safe. It's just unsafe. I think we've looked at two alternatives. We looked at keeping the existing driveway and trying to get down to it. And it doesn't work from a drainage perspective, and it's not safe from a grading perspective. It's not going to allow great access for the inhabitants as well as any emergency services that might be called to the site. So the town standards were recommended by engineering some months back. But so we tried to get those to conform. We looked at alternative number 2, which was shifting the driveway down south by 5 feet. That gave us basically a 60-foot run, but we still had grades that were higher than 12%. And we did snake it around to get the 60-foot run because the existing driveway just has a 40-foot run to the front of the house. But that didn't really work out for us either as far as safe turning radius on a steep grade. So we came up with what we have here before you this evening. Now it's really a win-win-win for everybody. We feel the wetlands win, we feel the town of Greenwich wins, and we feel the applicant also wins because we have a safe driveway. We are protecting the wetlands in that all the water that's flowing down the road, Hillcrest Road, and currently being dumped into the stream with no enhancement of water quality, with very poor water quality, in fact, will be captured and will be treated through our stormwater management system and then re-released to the stream with a better water quality. So we feel that the wetland corridor is going to improve, and certainly the water quality is going to improve. So we have that. We did cut back, we put a 2-wall system in, and we can eliminate any grading on the stream side of the wall. So I know that the SP1 you have in front of you this evening does show some very fine grading over there, but that was, I think, Christian's interpretation of the landscape architect saying we're going to groom or rake that area prior to planting. And so we can actually eliminate the grading on the stream side of the wall. So really our disturbance would be probably 2 feet in front of the wall or some 13 feet from the wetlands, because I think the wall is about 15 feet at its closest place. So we would eliminate all that. That would just be new plantings would go in there and also on the other side of the stream. So I think the wetlands corridor, we're removing the water quality issue, and we're also preventing additional waters from flowing down a steep slope to the drainage ditch. So we would eliminate an erosion problem and a sediment problem going into that wetland corridor. So the wetland is actually going to improve. Then we're going to improve the habitat by increasing the plantings. So we have a lot of nice enhancements going on for that particular drainage ditch, which was really formed by conveying a lot of the road water off of Hillcrest Lane. I did notice that Doreen had mentioned the 862 square foot increase in impervious coverage, and that number was taken off an old application. That number is actually reduced to 0, and actually less because we're using porous asphalt throughout the driveway. So we have porous asphalt throughout the proposed driveway, throughout the proposed motor court, and from the motor court on the gooseneck going down to the back out at the garage. That's all going to be porous asphalt, which is considered, of course, pervious. And it's going to be treating all of the runoff for water quality. We think that this gives you a very safe alternative to get emergency vehicles onto the property, to get the inhabitants onto the property. It gives them a safer transition into their front door. and gives them the ability to live safely. This actually meets the town standards. We could fray, or we could move away from the town standards, I think, at some point, but it doesn't really help, because then we end up with steep grades at different transitional areas, and we really feel this is the safest, most effective way to get a new entry onto the property and get people safely on and off the property. While we've made a lot of enhancements for the wetlands benefit, and granted we are just 15 feet away, but we've removed all the fill from the first go around. We've removed all the impervious coverage from the first go around. So I think, the Slonikers have worked very hard at trying to present a plan that gives you enhanced water quality, enhanced habitat around the wetland. It's got a reduction of direct polluted water from the road into the drainage ditch. And we really, we would hope to get an approval. We would hope that we have responded. I saw Diane DeVore had sent an email, I think it was just 6 hours before I got Doreen's staff report.
This is Pat Sesto. Tom? Did we lose him?
To the south and still got grades that were not acceptable. And so we reduced the impervious coverage. We used porous asphalt, and we think we've done a pretty good job of enhancing the habitat, the water quality, and other things associated with the wetlands. So I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I know you probably have many. This has been sort of back and forth, but we really feel that we've come up with a plan here that is a win-win-win for everybody. The wetland wins. I think the Slonikers win at great expense to them, but they still win as far as safety goes. And I think the town wins, because I think the town gets a safer, better transition off of Hillcrest, and we capture a lot of water and we treat a lot of water that otherwise would go untreated. So I'm happy to entertain your questions at this time.
This is Pat Sesto. Tom, you spoke about the alternatives of moving the driveway further north and utilizing the existing driveway. Did you submit any sketches to substantiate that position?
Yes, we did, Pat. Thank you. Thank you for asking. I think it was, you have to forgive me if I get the drawing numbers wrong. There's a lot of drawings here, and Christian is probably better to answer this, but
yeah,
I think it's PD 02.
DP1. This is Christian. DP1 and DP-2. Those we shown the slope, the grading of those driveway alternatives, and the location of those alternatives.
Yeah, what Christian did was he put the alignments and the profiles for those alternatives on those drawings.
And Doreen, did you discuss those alternatives with engineering?
No, those were not discussed with engineering, just the first proposal that just had the substantial amount of fill, and now this with the tiered walls. The other ones were not reviewed by engineering.
Okay, so maybe it would be helpful if we spoke to engineering to get an understanding of how those alternatives, if you think that they better protect the water course and wetland, get an understanding from the engineers at DPW, their thoughts with regards to safety and grades and the issues that Tom raised.
Okay, well, we would not object to that. I mean, we would welcome a conversation with engineering regarding the alternatives that we looked at. But you know, I'm sure their findings will be consistent with our findings with regard to safety.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from panelists regarding this? Okay, I'll turn it over to attendees. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, I'm not seeing that. We do have the,
Brian?
Yes.
Sorry, it's Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Just general question. Assuming that the walls stay as proposed after a conversation with the building department, are we happy with the 15 feet from the wetland?
Just a general question to the agency, I think.
That's a general question to the agency. I mean, this is a gigantic project, and you know, just building that outer wall 15 feet from the wetland, I'm wondering if that's I don't want that to be a new normal for us.
Well, I think
if I may interject, I would just say this is not gigantic. Certainly we've built bigger in town, but there's also some unique, yeah.
That was not the implication of the question.
All right, let me back up. What you have here is you have unique circumstance where, you know, the road is significantly higher than the finished floor of the house. We're trying to get down safely, and the road departs in elevation as you move toward the stream. Because obviously the stream and the drainage ditch is at the low point in the road. And so in order to get to a safe elevation, we have to move toward the water course, which is a drainage ditch. So I would say, yeah, this is sort of unique. It's a unique circumstance where to do it safely, we have to move toward the stream. And I know you wouldn't like that, but we can't make Mother Nature changed what she's given us. I mean, we have cards that we've been dealt. That and all the enhancements that we are making with regard to water quality, picking up stormwater off the road, treating it, and then redistributing it back to the water course, the plantings, and all of the improvements and embellishments that we're making there as mitigation for the distance. I think you have a very unique project here. I wouldn't call this standard at all.
Tom, question for you. Where the driveway currently is, what is the slope? Are you at the maximum allowable per town where you currently are, or can you still move it further north and hit that number or stay below that maximum allowable number?
We might be able to shift it a bit north and still maintain. The problem we're faced with are some of the transitions, because we are turning basically 90 degrees. So as we come in and we turn, and the transition elevations, to keep those safe for emergency vehicles and what have you, we would prefer not to. I mean, obviously we think we have it balanced now, where we have the safe approach. But as far as maximums go, no, the existing driveway, if you just look at, you know, the current elevation of the existing driveway where it departs from the road to the front of the house, that's a 15% grade, which exceeds any kind of standards in town. You obviously want to keep it at 12% on a residential property. So the existing is not an alternative. What we've done is we've moved it. Could we shift it a little bit north? Possibly.
Okay, and if you were to go away from a rectilinear approach where you have this 90-degree turn, and if you're coming at more of a curve, that would also make it easier to get to the court, would it not? Because right now you're coming in and then you're having to make this 90-degree turn around what look like some retaining walls.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that, but there's two reasons why it is the way it is. I wish the landscape architect were here. She could probably better explain it. Number one, I think there's a gate. There's a security gate that they're putting there. So we have to get off the road to the security gate. We need a certain distance to get to that. And then you need to make the turn because we're trying to elongate the length too. Don't forget it's rise over run. So we're trying to keep the run longer. The 90-degree turn gives us a longer run and more of a nuance when we align it. I see what you're saying. We could shorten it, but that would shorten it and give us even steeper grades. So I don't know that that's something we want to do. And the landscape architect had configured this with plantings and greenery and really keeping the driveway at a minimum that we could and still maintain turning radius. And then of course we included the porous asphalt too at the same time. So I think this is actually a very good alternative as I've stated for everybody.
This is Pat Sesto. So the house is under construction. This driveway application comes in as a secondary permit. What was originally approved and how come that's no longer serviceable?
Pat, the first one was conceived by Bill Rutherford and it was put through. And I think there were some pavers that were used and there were some minor changes to the driveway with regard to alignment. But I don't think the driveway was fully considered when going for the house permit. I was not that involved at that stage. I mean, our firm was involved and we were looking at the back side of the property and the house and the whole bit. The driveway was sort of we'll take care of that later. So I don't know that under the original plan, the driveway was very well thought through.
So are you saying that the building permit that was issued to you, you have a driveway that does not conform to the town standards?
I don't know that I can say that. I think I'd have to go back and look at what was approved or what was sent in. I don't think we changed the curb cut. I don't think we changed the curb cut. I think we just changed the alignment once we got on the property.
Yeah, Christian here. On the engineering standards, it was conforming with the first 25 feet of the required maximum slope. That was approved by Scott Marucci. And then, as well as the remaining driveway. Just want to point that out, that it was reviewed by engineering too.
So the original, your original building permit, you had an approved driveway. So this is now a second design, also consistent with town standards. But the first driveway you have a permit for is a legally conforming driveway.
I don't think that's the case. I don't know. I'd have to confer with Christian over the documents, but I don't believe that that the original permitting and there were some pavers and a realignment of the driveway was considered at that point, but I don't think anything was conforming to town standards. I don't see how that could be.
How would you get a permit if it wasn't conforming to town standards?
Because we didn't change the curb cut. We were leaving the curb cut as is. And I think what Bill did was he was just changing the alignment of the driveway on the property.
Okay. I had a hand up among attendees from a Diane, but then it went away.
No, she's back.
Nope. Okay. Let me.
That must be Diane DeVore, who is the landscape architect.
Okay.
So she
well, let me allow
she
her
may
to
have
talk
some
then.
beneficial information for us.
Okay. Okay. Diane, welcome. If you could state your name for the record and share with us what you want to share.
Okay, so I guess what I did realize, I was the second landscape architect hired, is that the original driveway did not conform to town standards. And I think what I sent to you all, I hope you have the plans that showed how, you know, the current water drains into the house. I looked over and over how to, you know, and I talked to Tom a lot about it, that, you know, we go up 3%, down 5%, what do we do? It's a really, really tight site. I did everything I possibly could, and I just realized if I shifted it down one driveway length, I could get the thing to work, and it all conformed. I wish I could send you pictures of the stream. It's not a great stream. I mean, I put in thousands of plants to try and mitigate it and make it much better. But I'm just trying to get a driveway that meets standards. And, you know, we've also got all those walls that were approved before, and we had to have them, you know, just in order to meet grade plane.
We got a little feedback, Luke, Diane. You may have two things on in your house. Yep, I think we just lost her. There's
Okay,
another.
well,
There's another Diane here. Hold on. No, there we go. Okay, are you there, Diane? Oh, she keeps jumping around on my screen. It's like whack-a-mole. Okay, hold on. Okay, Diane, are you there? Okay, I'm going to promote you to panelist, Diane. Are you there? I'm afraid we...
Come on.
Okay. Yep, hold on. All right, now let's try.
Can you see the plan?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, we have
Okay.
Diane now.
Okay. So I was stuck with grade plane walls, as you can see. And so once I had those grade plane walls, I know it's a 90-degree that I'm showing, but really what I looked at was the radius that I had to use to turn in. So, I mean, it could be a curve, it could be the little squares that I showed, that really doesn't matter. I'm up for any of it, but it was just the radius I needed for an ambulance or a car to turn in.
I guess my question would be then, what geometry pulls, if any, the activities further north from the wetland? I think is what our question is, and then the other is the DP1 and DP2 drawings, just to have that conversation with engineering.
Okay, well, you did see where my grade plane walls are, right? The red line, I sent to Doreen where the grade plane walls were. And so I'm stuck with those that go across the front. So I kind of took that grade plane wall and then I just swung a radius to turn into. And yeah, it's a little more geometric, but it's just a turning radius. So the geometry was to work with the house, but it was just a turning radius. So those red walls you all had approved before. I'm sorry to say the original application did not show the radius in the drive and all of that. And I told Doreen it's unfortunate. I don't know how it happened. It did happen. So I'm just trying to get a safe driveway in and where the water doesn't run into the house.
Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah, if I may comment, just one more thing. By shifting the walls 3 feet, we may lose some of the porous asphalt design. We've got it set, and the grading of the driveway using porous asphalt and the reservoirs underneath the driveway. As you go steeper, you lose some of that effect. So, maybe we could gain 3 feet on the wall as far as separation distance from the water course, but we might lose, well, we will lose some of the porous asphalt features and some of the water quality features and some of the other beneficial low impact development scenarios that we're using on the stormwater management. So we felt that may not be a trade-off that you want to make. If we leave it where it is, we will take the grading off of there. We have all the plantings going in, and we do have a heck of a lot of porous asphalt, which is really beneficial with regard to overall development.
And I guess if I can just throw in, since I'm there in the beginning, was the stream's a mess. I mean, it's lawn, it's grass, and it's Chamaecyparis, euonymus, it's all these invasives. So I really thought that, I mean, we're adding hundreds and hundreds of wetland plants, and I thought by just having that buffer, and I've done it on other properties in Greenwich, I think it can be beautiful, and I think it'll really mitigate what's going on. I don't know. I know we're a little bit close, but I also know we have to have a bit of a break between the driveway and a wall, so the plows don't hit into it. We've pulled everything closer. I need to get a lawnmower or something into the back. So I thought I was as tight as I possibly could be.
You're talking about getting a lawnmower in the back to the south of the wall, or around the far side of the house?
Their backyard. That's the only access to the backyard is that one side. There's no access anywhere else.
So you'll need to have some sort of a travel path through the wetland in order to get into that area to the south of the house.
Well, it's not, so I guess it's the wetland buffer. So on the outside of the wall, I left 6 feet just to have access. It's the only area in the house that can access pool equipment or anything else.
Mm-hmm. And that's still accessible if the grading stays as is?
It's tight. I mean, that's a whole different scenario, but
right.
Yes, that's how they go down right now.
Bob, I see your hand's up.
Yeah, Bob Clossy. I haven't really looked at the plan, and I don't know what all has been discussed, but if there were some construction sequence details that might support your application, I think you should provide those, because you are so close. How are they going to build this without having impact during the construction?
Okay. Well, we can certainly provide those for you, Bob. That's a good point. And yeah, I mean, obviously the walls are going to get constructed first, and we do have double silt fence. I think Doreen has recommended that we actually put hay bales in between the double fencing, which we're happy to do. Yeah, we would certainly have a lot of protective measures being taken during the active construction, but pulling everything to the north and keeping all the activity to the north and away from the stream.
It's just a really hard project. I mean, I tried every which way, and as you can see, the further I go up the road, the driveway just keeps getting steeper.
Yes, as I explained, as you move up Hillcrest Lane to the north, the elevation increases, and it just makes the job more and more difficult.
And I have to hold those grade plane walls, which was originally approved, and the house was set at that elevation, so I'm just stuck. So it's how do we
Okay.
get emergency equipment in, if there's ever a fire, or if anybody ever needs to get in there. So I just thought that we only moved down 10 feet, but it does move the walls down. But as Bob knows, I've done other plantings like this in Greenwich, and I think the mix of the native plants heavily planted with a lot of the plugs. And if you all have been out there, you'll see it's all grass. I mean, it's a mess. I really think this would make the stream, you know, much more viable and really help.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at attendees. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this? Okay. Well, I guess that we still have the question of those other two alternatives, Pat. The open question with regards to whether engineering is going to want you're going to want to hear engineering's views on those. Is that something that you'd like to hold to, and we should push this off till next month?
I'm happy to defer to Doreen.
I think it would be useful to have those. And I'm also wondering if it wouldn't be useful to maybe increase plantings along the buffer edge here with maybe a demarcation feature that might help increasing the buffer. But I also haven't prepared any conditions of approval.
Right. Okay. Well, that being said, I will, let's see, and then we don't have, you
Brian.
haven't provided us an extension yet.
Brian?
Oh, I see it.
Mhm.
Elliot's hands. Okay, Elliot,
Yeah.
please.
Tom Oneman mentioned an alternative that he said would have major impacts relative to the permeable pavers and other things. And I'd like to see that alternative, and I'd like to see the impacts to understand what it is he was talking about.
Yes, that was in regard to the porous asphalt that we currently have on the plan.
Right, by what you
Yeah.
would lose by shifting things further north by a certain number of feet.
Yeah, I'd just like to see that in hard copy, if you would.
Okay. No, that's
Okay.
fine. We could certainly do that. I was trying to get the point across that you might be cutting off your nose to spite your face, because we really feel the water quality benefits we have here are worthwhile. And I'll be happy to quantify exactly what you lose by shifting.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I would appreciate that.
Okay. One thing we do need from Tom, from you, is an extension. Otherwise, we can invoke the 90-day extension allowed by executive order.
Brian, this is Doreen.
Hi, Doreen.
They did give us the 65-day extension.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right. Then would someone like to make a motion on this? If not, I'll make a motion to delay. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, very good. I'll go down the list. Mr. Benton,
Approved.
Mr. Galvin,
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf,
Approved.
Mr. Skoufalos,
Agree, yes.
Ms. Curlin.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, we will see you most likely via Zoom next month.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Very good. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Next up, we have new applications for review. First is 2020-019, 15 Orchard Hill Lane, Carrie Breed, for WAMS LLC to maintain stone wall and portion of driveway within wetlands. Doreen, please.
Okay, here I'm looking for the map to share. There's going to be two, so I'm going to have to interrupt in between just to switch them. Okay, this applicant is seeking to maintain the construction of a stone retaining wall located just off the eastern property line that partially encroaches into a pocket wetland. They're also seeking to maintain a portion of a motor court that encroaches into the wetland at the front of the property by up to 50 to 60 square feet. A mitigation plan and demarcation feature was provided. The stone retaining wall was originally approved to be relocated along the property line under Agent Approval 2018-047. The as-built drawing that was submitted at the completion of that project showed that the wall was relocated about 4 feet onto the adjoining property to the east and intrudes into a pocket wetland by up to 7 to 8 square feet, which has been described as possibly being a remnant foundation hole and is being maintained as a meadow. The abutting property owner, the Round Hill Club, has authorized the wall to remain and has also authorized the maintenance of a deer fence that was installed by the applicant on the club property. The area located between the top of the retaining wall and the deer fence is proposed to be maintained as meadow. In addition, a boulder demarcation feature is proposed from wetland flag 14 to wetland flag 9. The area beyond the demarcation is to be maintained as a meadow, utilizing a New England wildflower mix that will restore about 3,000 square feet of wetland area previously maintained as lawn. The deer fence should be raised along its base about 6 inches in the wetland and the wetland buffer. There's a small pile of landscaping debris located to the southeast of the shed that should be removed. I'm going to attempt to change the map, so just please bear with me. Okay. All right, so the front driveway courtyard was originally approved to encroach into the wetland by only approximately 5 to 10 square feet. Again, as clarified in the as-built drawing, the motor court encroaches by up to 50 to 60 square feet. Although the wetland is maintained in a wooded natural state, there is opportunity for mitigation plantings. Three dogwoods were approved as mitigation for the 5 to 10 foot driveway encroachment under the previous permit. As additional mitigation for the current violation, 6 shrubs are proposed to be installed within the wetland to the west of the driveway encroachment, and 16 shrubs and 1 understory tree are proposed along the wetland on the southern side of the driveway. The southern wetland is maintained in a natural state with native woody and herbaceous species, but will benefit from additional buffer plantings. The plantings on the plan are appropriately sized. A planting plan was proposed and approved along the northwestern side of the house as part of a restoration for the unauthorized driveway expansion that was built sometime between 1998 and 2003 under the previous homeowners. The new proposed planting plan for this area restores approximately 3,850 square feet of the wetland and the buffer. This planting plan should be enhanced to consist of a minimum of 20 planting stations, each station consisting of 3 to 5 shrubs, 1 shade tree or 1 understory tree as designated by the agency's mitigation planting guidelines dated December 22nd, 2015. A letter was provided that stated February 18th, 2020. The owner has asked the agency to consider granting relief from the triple filing fee, which was $1,500. It's 500 times 3. It's recommended that the agency issue an order to correct with the conditions that are outlined in the staff report.
Hi, thank you, Doreen. Is there anyone from the applicant that wishes to speak? If so, raise your hand.
Carrie Breed is in the audience.
Okay. Ms. Breed. Okay. I believe you've been released to talk if you wish.
Hi, Carrie Breed here for 15 Orchard Hill Lane. We're here to answer any questions that you all may have for us regarding this application.
Okay. Do you have any questions regarding the conditions?
I do have one question about the 20 planting stations and how that's different from the proposed 6 shrubs. On the last page there, the last bullet point of the staff report with what Bill Rutherford has proposed here with the 16 shrubs and the 1 understory tree here. Is that an additional 4 shrubs, or what? I just don't understand what the planting stations means, I guess.
Doreen, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. So we have a planting guideline that has planting stations every 15 feet. So that would include the 3 shrubs or 1 understory tree or a shade tree. So we just need to see the existing planting plan enhanced a little bit to meet that requirement. There's a little fewer plantings than meet that guideline.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any agency members have any questions for the applicant on this? Any public questions or comments? Okay, very good. Would someone like to make a motion?
There's also the question of the filing fee.
Okay, could you outline that question?
So this, I'm sorry, go ahead, Doreen.
Okay, there was a filing fee. It was a violation. So it was a $500 fee tripled due to it being a violation. So they're requesting relief from that filing fee.
And is there a rationale, or maybe Carrie would like to speak to the rationale of why?
Yes. Yes. So we inherited violations when we purchased this property that we didn't know about. So this has been an ongoing. We've just had numerous applications here with Wetlands to try to do the right thing during this renovation process, and just, you know, we started off on the wrong foot with inherited violations that we had no idea about. And so we're just asking for some financial relief. We've spent a lot of money to try to do the right thing by Wetlands.
Carrie, did you pay triple the fee with the violations you inherited?
That's a good question. You know what? I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Bob has his hand raised.
Yep, I'm sorry. Please, Bob.
Bob Kloss, I was just going to chime in that in my recollection is that additional filing fees were paid for one of the previous applications when it was found that the pullout looking at that plan to the left of the garage extended further than it had when the agency closed out the prior permit. And that was a violation, an extension that was done by the preceding owner to Miss Breed. So I believe they did pay additional fees that time, and they did inherit that violation.
Okay. Very good. Any other agency questions? Public questions? Would someone like to make a motion regarding this while also addressing the request for, or not addressing the request for filing fee reductions?
Okay, I'll make a motion. Elliot Benton. A motion to approve the issuance of an order as proposed by staff.
Okay. Without any adjustment to filing fees, I'm assuming.
I thought you said that was going to be a separate issue.
Oh, okay. Well, you could either wrap it into one motion or we can do it into 2.
Well, given that they paid filing fees for prior problems that weren't theirs, I would say we waive them this time. So just
You
back to
waive the 3 times rule and just keep
Yes.
the original
Exactly.
$500 fee?
Precisely, boss.
Okay, very good.
I'll
Is there-
second.
Okay, Bill Galvin seconds. Let me go through the list here. Elliot and Bill are yays. Jay Schoendorf,
Yay.
Joe Rogers,
Yes.
Stefan Skoufalos,
Agree, yes.
Norma Curlin,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay, moving along to 2021. Let's move this. 2020-021, 27 Pexlin Road. Soundview Engineers and Land Surveyors, LLC, for Benjamin Welsh for construction of a pool, patio, and retaining walls 9 feet from wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
Okay. The applicant right now is completing the redevelopment of, actually the development of this lot that was split off from the a larger parcel that used to be part of the original houses just to the south. That permit began in 2008, and some of the site work was done, but the permit was allowed to expire. And so earlier this year, the new owner and developer reapplied and got a new permit to finish the work. Now that work included the house, included a pool, included a drainage system, a septic system. And as stated in the staff report, the plan that was submitted earlier this year mirrored the plan in 2008 regarding grading in the rear yard. If you have your plans in front of you, the paper plans, you can see faint contour lines under the proposed grading lines, which are darker. That's the existing slope behind the house, which is very steep. The slope breaks pretty close to the back of the house. And back in 2008, staff made the point that this is probably one of those applications that the applicant at the time wanted to get a house, they wanted to get a pool, they wanted to get the other things. They didn't want to show a really usable backyard. And the agency approved it, and you reapproved it this year. The developer now would like to get more of a level backyard. I don't know that there's an issue with getting some sort of extension of the levelness of the backyard, but as stated in the staff report, tiered retaining walls that come up to about 10 feet from this finger wetland to the east of the pond is pushing the envelope pretty hard. And I think there's a reasonable compromise here where a level backyard could be created and a more reasonable wetland buffer could be maintained. The applicant has provided a planting plan to restore 25 feet from that finger wetland with plantings. So it's not as though they're trying to get turf right up to the top of that westerly boulder retaining wall. But again, I think both during the construction and during the ongoing residential use of the property, the wetland impacts are probable and would be less likely if that westerly wall was relocated closer to the house. So I'm recommending the agency delay. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Is there anyone from the applicant that wants to speak to this tonight? I don't see any hands being raised. Oop.
Yes, there was
Okay,
Yeah, there's
now I
one.
see it.
hands raised.
Okay, let's start with Ben Welsh. You could state your name for the record and
Unmute yourself.
unmute yourself. Yes. Okay, I'm not. All right, Mr. Welsh.
Okay, good evening.
Hi.
I think my landscape architect, Joe Pajonas, is also trying to be recognized.
Yes.
Yep. I don't think we can have you speak at the same time.
We
I
can speak.
can allow Joseph to talk.
I think it would be a better use
Okay.
of the committee's time if we could hear Joe first.
Okay. All right, Joe, you are unmuted.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yep. I think we can
Excellent.
hear both you and Ben.
Thank you. Joe Pajonas, landscape architect for the client. Joseph Pajonas Studio, 6 Oak Street West, Greenwich, Connecticut. As Bob mentioned, we have reimagined an application from '08. We have done so by looking at the rear yard from a sort of practical and likely end user perspective. The previous proposal did have a pool on it. We have kept that pool in the upper yard off the rear patio, but a big part of the design is that we sort of conceptualize this flatter play lawn that is reflected here well on Soundview's site development plan, but I'd also love to take a look at our planting plan if possible. I think it starts to show the rear yard developed in a little bit more detail. Because what I wanted to show was that we have created basically a 50-foot by 50-foot play lawn. So just to conceptualize that and visualize that, it's about the size of a half-court basketball area, so it's nothing huge. And we just think it's sort of prudent and a obviously solid use for the rear yard, you know, for the future owner. Compared to the owner approval, we have done much of this within the same footprint in terms of grading and disturbance, albeit it does look different. We have moved the development west or to the left of the page a bit by about 7 feet more than, say, the '08 approval. We've also, though, given back a little. We've brought up the development from the south anywhere from 10 to even 20 feet. We have indeed added retaining walls as sort of highlighted in gray on this plan, and as well on the site development plan. These walls are envisioned to be a dry stack armor wall. So albeit, you know, the grading plan does show that they vary anywhere from 12 inches to 5 feet in height. We are looking to achieve this from a structural standpoint by basically building this dry stacked armor stone wall that doesn't need a frost footing. So we really just, they call it sort of keying in a footing, maybe 6 inches onto native soils, which is a sound load-bearing material, and just building up the walls from there. It'll be dry stacked because the size of stones that we're going to use will be interlocked in a way that will again be structurally sound, and we've gone through those details in detail with Soundview engineers. We will certainly put a specified woven filter fabric behind all of these walls. That will add not only to the structural component of it, but it will also obviously keep back the fill material that we will use. We also feel that these walls in an improvement on the '08 plan will act as a significant demarcation, which I think could be obviously a positive. Furthermore, in addition to the '08 plan, we've added what we feel is a prudent and extensive planting plan, which certainly takes, you know, what was previously done to the next level. last but not least, these are not grade plane walls. We have verified this with the surveyor and the engineer that we are able to get back to existing grade, and therefore we don't have any of those issues, and we are certainly within setback, as we can see here on the plan. I think that's about all I got, and I'll flip it back to the commission.
Okay, thank you. Agency questions on this? Elliot, please.
What happens if you move the pool and the associated play area to the northeast?
So there's a couple reasons that we kept it here. We did want to keep the drainage flow between the pool and what's shown as a terrace off of the main residence. So obviously the pool is flat, the covered terrace is flat, and we need to create and keep water moving through those areas. So the tighter we make that, we did create a little bit of an issue. And we are also keeping open options just in designing, obviously, pools for client after client after client. We like to, one thing that's sort of not going by the wayside, is very trendy, is to have this as safe as possible for a lot of clients. So it does also award you the opportunity to have a fence in and around the pool if someone wanted that. And a lot of times people do that with temporary means, and there's in addition to your traditional pool enclosure. So drainage was number one, but there was also some functionality behind the idea as well.
Right. And so were you to move the pool to the northeast, you could then pull the play area further away from the wetlands, could you not?
So the play area is obviously it's right above what's labeled storm, which is for stormwater. I view the two areas to somewhat be separate when you're talking about movement to the left or to the right. The pool could shift a little bit closer, but that doesn't mean that the play area is allowed. The play area is constrained by a very nice 26-inch oak, as well as some ledge rock in and around the area that's, around where the well is, which is indicated by a W. So shifting that in that direction is difficult to do.
Now, I'm not sure that we're talking about moving it in the same way. I'm talking about moving the pool fundamentally straight up the plan.
Oh, I'm constrained by the septic system there.
I don't see a septic system there.
The reserve?
That's correct. That's the reserve area, and then the hatched area is the septic area. So I have a 25-foot offset from that.
From the reserve or from the septic?
From the reserve, which is high. It's not labeled, my apologies, but there is a little half moon shaped dotted line, which is that 25-foot setback. And that is from the reserve.
Well, it does seem like there's a lot of opportunities to bring that pool tighter to the house, bring the play area further up. It looks like you have a lot of lawn around that pool that could really be part of the play area. And my guess is that that lawn was your enjoyment area before you proposed this separate play area. So I think you could certainly tighten around that pool significantly if you are looking to get a whole separate lawned area into this plan, and provide a lot more buffer to the wetlands. I guess that's the direction I'd like to see when you come back.
Mr. Harris, could I speak
Please.
for a moment?
Yes.
I just like to point a couple things out. On March 1st, I closed down construction of this project due to the coronavirus. I did that voluntarily for the safety of the folks who were working there. Now we're desperately trying to get this project back up and running under the state approved guidelines and making sure everybody's safe. Any further delay to this is going to cause me further hardship. So I would really like to try to figure out a way that we could satisfy the committee this evening and somehow, if at all possible, keep this moving forward. In regards to moving the pool to the northeast, I think you bring the pool a little too close to the house for comfort. So essentially, you're going to kind of walk off your back patio and you're going to be in the pool. So that was why we wanted to try to pull it as far away from the house as possible. I think Joe and I had talked about there was probably a way we could move the retaining wall in a little bit to give it an additional buffer to the wetlands. And hopefully, possibly that could satisfy the committee. The one other thing that Joe wasn't able to include is that my neighbor to my right or to my left, depending on how you choose to look at it, in parcel B, bought the original house, and I bought the subdivided lot next door. That was a construction project that was in complete disarray and stopped with debris and a foundation and trash and polluted wetlands, and we cleaned it all up. And as we started to develop the site, it became apparent to my neighbor that the land that he thought was his was actually mine. And he tried to serve me with adverse possession, but it was not a reasonable claim because the previous owner had owned both, and we both very politely concluded that the lines as I have them drawn are, so represented to me, are correct, and what he thought was incorrect. And he was, to be completely honest, he was pretty disappointed. And part of the way this has been designed is a little bit to be neighborly also, because if I put a steep wall, like indicated right now, as close to parcel B, it basically preserves my neighbor having some flat land down below that he uses now as part of his backyard. And we were going to grant him the ability to continue to use that. If we start to reconfigure this too much, I think my ability to grant sort of him reasonable and unlimited access to some of that land may go away. And also from a design perspective, it's just not going to work so well if the pool is brought up into the northeast. So I'm not sure how it works, but any consideration would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Elliot, you have your hand raised? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't take my hand down.
There. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I've lowered my hand. Sorry.
Well, I mean, in terms of continuing your project, you have a approved permit currently, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you could always continue building on that permit.
I can, but where we're at now, it would be very helpful if we could start to develop the site, the backyard, put the retaining walls in, if I could start to move landscaping in and trees and things of that nature before we get further along in the construction with the primary residence.
Well, we really don't have any conditions of approval, and I think there's still some work to be done on this. I'm not sure if any of the other panelists have comments that they'd like to make on this. Any questions from staff? Pat or Bob?
I would concur with Bob's report, which there's opportunities to pull this residential development off of the wetland. We know that the types of property uses associated with residential, whether it's dog poop or fertilizers, pesticides, there is benefit to having natural vegetation between those more intense uses and the wetland. So I would strongly suggest that those be investigated by the applicant and brought to the commission.
I would agree.
I'd just, Bob Class, I'd just make one comment. I think Mr. Pajonas is pointing out this 26-inch oak that they're trying to retain. That's a kind of an important comment because we do want to retain notable trees, and so this is good information to have. If on paper you could shift that whole play area to the, let's call it to the right of the plan, to the, I guess that's to the east, but then you'd have to take out that oak tree. So any other, and Mr. Welsh's comments about working with his neighbor, I mean, this is all good information. whether it's, has a definitive bearing on the wetland issue, I'm not sure, but it helps to paint the whole picture of how you came up with this plan.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, as I look at this, you see you have a great deal of lawn west of the pool that could become part of that play area down below, which allow you to push everything further up or to the northeast, I guess, based upon the plan. Those are, and then that would bring us back or bring us away from the wetland. So I think that there's still some options that we need to see on this.
May I speak to that comment?
Sure.
Thank you. Joe Pajonas again. I just want to make sure, so we could, and we are willing to shift that stone wall that runs on the left side of the pool to button that up a little bit closer to the pool and eliminate some of that lawn. That has nothing to do with, I would say, play lawn or play area. And I think I would argue that the previous plan, and it just may not have been part of the program, it's not a critique, but the previous plan did not really have adequate space for any open use lawn for that area. What we've done here to further paint the picture is we've really tried to work with the site and balance the cut and fill a little bit. So we've really graded, that's why I really wanted to look at this plan, because we show every 1 foot contour, and we've really tried to grade this plan in a way that limits the amount of fill and just limits overall cost and preserves, things that we've already talked about tonight. So the play lawn that we have created isn't overly substantial. Again, I sort of referenced the size of a half-court basketball in terms of size, but the client would be willing, and it's different than a regular meeting where we can't, converse on the side. But I mean, this overall disturbance and grading reflects really closely the previous approval. I mean, would the commission consider if we buttoned up the walls and changed it a little bit, albeit I don't want to make the play area smaller than a basketball court, we could, would the commission be up for, if we kept the development within the previous, even though, but we were able to keep the walls? And I think we have a lot of, positives as a reflective of, as a result of those actions is I'm just sort of thinking out loud with the commission, if you will.
Bob, your hand's raised, so.
Yes, Bob Clossy. I think it, again, it would help. It would have helped a little bit if you'd been able to take that 2008 and early this year plan and show where the limit of grading was, because that was really not depicted on that plan unless you looked at the detail, the call out for the drainage system and the level spreader. And I agree with Mr. Pajonas. There was filling, not 5 feet of fill, but there was some filling to the, again, I'm looking at the plan that's being shared here, to the left of the infiltrator galleries. So in that play area, there was fill going in there. But how does that compare to what's being proposed now as far as where the limit of fill was and the amount of fill? That would be very helpful, because the 2008 plan didn't specifically kind of lay that out with contour lines.
This is Pat Sesto. Bob, do you recall, and this is probably a long shot, in the 2008, what the vegetative cover was supposed to be above the infiltrator? Was that meant to be part of the lawn or meadow?
Okay. Again, there was very little, there was not, the limit of landscaping was not called out on the plan. So the silt fence was shown at about the spot where that boulder retaining wall is shown. The level spreader at 20 scale was maybe 12 feet to the right of that boulder wall. The level spreader was going to be, it had to be under like 2 feet of fill. So that you could expect fill to extend to the, you know, between the level spreader and the silt fence. So and how that was going to be managed, I suppose it could have been lawn. We didn't restrict it, but it would have been a very steep lawn. So I think this is what they're trying to do.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any attendees have any comments on this? I see. Okay, Bob, your hand. I'm going to lower your hand unless you've got more to talk about. Any other agency questions or comments? Oh, okay. Would someone like to make a motion on this?
Is, Bob, your recommendation is a delay?
Yes, I don't have conditions of approval in the staff report. If the agency feels inclined to approve this, we could probably work those out, you know, on the fly. It would be related to plant, you know, a bond related to the cost of the plantings, things like that. Not very extensive conditions.
Mm-hmm.
That would be greatly appreciated if that was at all possible.
Okay, Elliot Benton, I'm sorry. I think there are some alternatives that need to be addressed here. And I'm sorry, I don't have the immediate plans in front of me, but it looks like the play area is a step down from the area, the level of the pool. How much of a step down is that?
It is 3 feet lower. So those stairs take you down, you know, it varies. So it starts at about 2.5 feet and then goes about 3 feet lower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and far be it from somebody on the agency to suggest yet more fill. But if you filled in a section to the, I can't see
the west,
the
southwest,
and made your level from the pool to the southwest, could you then cut out a whole segment of that play area and just move it up level?
Certainly looks like a feasible alternative to me.
It's yeah, we could, I mean, you could fill the area. It doesn't balance cut and fill like I really almost always like to do, and I think that's what you were alluding to in your beginning of your comment, suggesting more fill. So it's something that would certainly flatten the area out, but it does just enhance and, you know, just add to development, and it adds to everything. It just adds to fill and adds to money and adds to cost and adds to walls. So we would have to look at it.
Well, you're already building stone walls, and you're already regrading.
You could certainly pull well away from the wetland if you did that, because you get the same area, but you'd be moving further to the northeast.
You'd be starting your play area close to the pool edge, and then it extends south, and that would pull everything significantly to the northeast.
And away from the oak and away from the wetland.
Bob, how many feet pulled away would make you comfortable?
Well, it's what makes all of us comfortable. It's not for Bob to answer.
Yeah.
Mr. Benton, how much do you think you would like to see it pulled away?
If you really want my opinion personally, I'd like to see you build with the approval you have, period. But I'm willing to work with you somewhat. So you want a flat play area, get it as far away from the wetland as you possibly can.
And extend it out from the level of the pool.
Right.
That way you can have an uninterrupted play area from the pool to a yard to the west. But it doesn't have to be the steps down and extend and impinge upon the wetland buffer.
And in fact, that removes the wall because then you don't have the wall with the stairs in it.
Yep.
We could take a look at that. We'll definitely take a look at that. I do think that I can't move that wall much closer to the stormwater. There are pipes in place that I've gone through in detail with the engineer, and that whole system inverts and all that. So we have to be careful a little bit where we put walls relative to that stormwater, but we can look at those. We can look at those alternatives.
Can't you reconfigure your stormwater, or is that already in the ground?
So we really can't. It's a great question. I was hoping to do the same, but as a part of the 08 approval, there are inverts that come from the front of the house back to the rear of the house that are, from what it's been told to me, already in place, which would affect the invert in and invert out of that Caltech system.
So the Caltech's not built, but the infrastructure that feeds to it is, and that's driving the elevation of the Caltech.
Better said than I. Yes, that's correct. And it's coming from the front driveway areas.
Okay. Well,
Okay, well, something to explore for next month then.
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a motion to delay.
Second, Elliot Benton,
Okay.
second.
Elliot, second. Let me call the roll. Mr. Galvin.
Agree.
Agreed. Okay. Your Game of Thrones set is slipping. Mr. Schoendorf.
Approve it.
Mr. Rogers.
Approve.
Ms. Skoufalos.
Agree as well.
Ms. Curlin.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, gentlemen, we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is application 2020-024, 9 Dialstone Lane, RI Pools, Inc., for Anthony and Joanna Antonucci for construction of a pool, patio, and retaining walls 8 feet from wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
Right. This is the, okay, I'm going to be very brief on this because I've been in contact with the applicant and with the engineer who's working with them. The issue here, in my opinion, is all about drainage. This house, when there was originally a house here that was demolished, and the new house was built under a 2019 permit. That, because of the configuration, that the new house, the impervious coverage was less than the original house. So they did the project under a residential tear down exemption to the drainage manual. They didn't have to really put a full-blown drainage system in. They did put some infiltrators in the backyard, but not up to the full standards of the drainage manual. Having used that exemption, they're not entitled to any further exemption. So with this pool and patio, they have to meet the full standards, and they have not provided the full, well, I take it back. DPW and has questions, they have to come back. So they're in the process of getting that worked out. I think the agency needs to see the final plan before before you all approve it. From my perspective, and as stated in my staff report, I don't think the pool or the retaining wall in the corner of the property pose a significant wetland risk, but we do need to see the whole plan as it's approvable and buildable, and I therefore recommend delay.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Is there anyone from the applicant wishes to speak to this? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Pat, are you seeing anything on yours? Nope. Okay. Agency questions, discussion? Would someone like to make a motion?
Do we need an extension here?
429.
did they give an extension, Bob?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's Pexlin Road. This is 429 as well, so we either need an extension or we invoke our 90-day.
Okay, I think Bob Fossey, I'm still on the mic, and I don't believe we've gotten an extension. I'm quickly checking the file, and I would say they have not given the 65-day extension.
Okay.
But they do want the application to be continued.
Okay, so let's make a motion to extend by 90 days off the 4/29/2020 deadline and to delay the application until next month.
Second.
Okay, Stefan seconds. Discussion? Oh, okay, I will call the roll. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Galvin.
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf.
Approve.
Mr. Rogers.
Approve.
I know Stefan's approved and Ms. Curlin.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Moving right along. Next is application 2020-025, 70 Lower Cross Road, Redness and Mead, Inc. for SBP Lower Cross LLC for construction of a single-family residence, driveway, guest house, pool house, patio, septic system, and drainage within and adjacent to wetlands. Mr. Clausy, if you'd be so kind.
All right. This is a 10-acre parcel. Back in 2011, the agency issued a permit that authorized the construction of a large house at the southern or right-hand side of the lot, as shown on this plan. That permit was initiated, and they did a lot of the site work. They cleared and leveled the area for the main house. They built the retaining walls that are shown on the plan. They cut in the driveway. They did the wetland, watercourse crossing they had to revise, and they did that. Subsequently, back in last year, another agent approval is issued to demolish the house that stood at the front of the property because the 2011 permit had expired, and that work was done. So now they've come in wanting to complete the project, actually build the stuff. And in general, the plan is, as far as construction goes, looks fairly good to me. They're within the previously approved limits of disturbance with the buildings and the other improvements. And the fact that the retaining walls are there is going to be a great protection to the wetlands when they do the main house construction. There are a couple areas that are concerning, though. They have a plan to put a deer fence around the property. The location of this deer fence is crossing wetlands, right up against wetlands, crossing a vernal pool. Really no justification given for why they need a deer fence there, except that they want to enclose as much of their 10 acres as possible, I suppose. Then the second thing would be some additional leveling and clearing adjacent to the main house. South is to the right on this plan, so due west of the house, there's a retaining wall shown on this plan. And and that little triangle to at the base of the retaining wall, that's a wooded knoll right now. And the plan shows that that's going to be cleared and made into what's called a gravel overlook on the planting plan. As I said, that's very close to a vernal pool. It's part of the vernal pool critical 100-foot zone, and no justification's been given for why this is required. And then to the east of the house, there's another little area of a wooded knoll that there's some trees to be cleared and some, right up there, some grading to be done. Again, I don't know why. when I was out there in early February, I heard, not early February, I think it was maybe it was March 18th, I heard wood frogs calling in that big wetland in the southwest part of the property. So again, critical vernal habitat that really should be maintained unless they can make some justification for changing it. There's a 4-foot walking path proposed through upland areas. I guess they're calling out clearing down and dead debris. That's pretty vague. So I think they need a little more detail on that. The pavilion proposed in the southeast corner of the property, right at the upper right-hand corner of this plan. We, as of the writing of the staff report, had not received details of what this structure would be. And the applicant proposed to dredge a part of the pond to the south of the guest house. They haven't really provided details or cross sections to fully explain what it is they want to create here. So I recommend delay, and I know that the applicant's representatives are in the audience tonight.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Would anyone from the applicant like to speak to this or the staff report? You can raise your hand. Let me see. Okay, we got Brett and William. Should we start with, I'll allow Brett to talk first. Okay. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Brett Holsworth. I'm with Redness and Mead. I'm the civil engineer for this project. Bob did a good staff report outlining what was going on. You know, this was an old project from 2011 that had a similar scope that what we're proposing now. They cleared a lot of the trees, they built the retaining walls and the bridge to the driveway. So a lot of that previously disturbed area was has already been disturbed, and we're benefiting from that. So the staff report had a few comments that we could just go through some of them. I'll speak to some of them, and then I'll kick it to Bill Kenny to discuss some of the other ones relating to the wetland issues. Also, I'll mention that we received DPW comments, and we are prepared to respond to that. So moving to some of the comments that Bob Clossy mentioned, the pavilion, for starters, is just a 20 by 20 wooden structure. It would be open slotted roof. It's not enclosed. It would be slightly raised above the ground. Most likely it would be, the floor would be wood decking, and it would adjust to the contours. We wouldn't be establishing, oh yeah, I emailed a photo. I think I saw Doreen maybe put it up, but if not, I can just describe what it looks like. It's just a wood lattice opening pergola that would be able to sit on the knoll over that area. And then regarding additional plans, we expect to be working with staff to address his other comments regarding the deer fence, the walking paths, the dredge. We do have a plan in motion to provide details for the dredge that we just weren't able to provide for this meeting. So we just wanted to, get the comments from staff and the agency and see if there are any other concerns in addition to the ones that Bob already brought up. So I think at this time, I will ask that Bill Kenny speaks to the other concerns that Bob brought up.
I've unmuted Bill.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Bill.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Bill Kenny, landscape architect and wetland scientist for the applicant. And I think Brett did a good job with going through most of the comments. And I think just a couple of key points I wanted to emphasize was that we have reviewed the comments with the applicant, and they have pointed out ways that we could address these, such as moving the deer fence and so forth. So we're going to study that a little bit closer, and we think that we should be able to address the comments. We'll, as Brett noted, be in touch with Bob to review these in advance of the meeting. Yeah, I think that's it. We talked about the, Brett talked about, we're going to provide additional information for the pond dredging. The 4-foot wide path will certainly be more specific about what activities we're proposing to create that path. And it's going to be a very low impact path with just using the soil surface as it is, and then except where there's wetland areas, using an elevated boardwalk, a product that you have approved in recent years. Each leg of the boardwalk sits on a pad that's about a square foot, and so there's no protrusions into the soil to support this system. And yes, so we're working with the applicant. I think we can address the comments and look forward to coming back. And if you have any additional comments this evening, we'd love to be able to discuss those so that we can also address those in time for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Agency questions for Mr. Kenny or anyone else on the team?
Sorry, Rogers, and this is also for Bob. Do we need to really understand the pond, whether that's a vernal pond or not, and get clarity around that issue? Because if it is, then we've got to bring in the Clements rules.
Bob Clossy, back in 2011, I saw species there that indicate to me it is a breeding site for some obligate species. Mr. Kenny might know more about it at this point. However, I think this is one of those cases where, pushing beyond the previously approved envelope, I would strongly argue against. But since there was a previously approved envelope that's been developed, basically, I'm not sure we can kind of tighten that up much, but there may be opportunities. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that's something that Mr. Kenny can probably clarify, along with all the other things that he's going to be addressing.
Yes, we will gather information regarding that, the vernal pool habitat on the property, and in addition to the proposed configuration for the pond, and have that for you at your next meeting.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very important. Any public questions on this application at this point? No? Okay. Would someone like to make a recommendation?
Motion to delay.
Is the motion to delay? Is there a second?
Second, Bill Galvin.
Okay. Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
I did, Stefan.
Okay, Stefan, thank you. Okay, motion by Stefan, second by Mr. Galvin. I'll go through the roll. First of all, any discussion? No? Okay. Mr. Benton?
Approve.
Okay. Mr. Galvin? Approves.
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf?
Approve.
Mr. Rogers?
Approve.
Yep. And Mr. Skoufalos? He made the motion. And Ms. Curlin? Norma, you there? Yep. Okay. Norma's there, and I approve as well. Okay.
Brian has a question.
We have 2 participants with raised hands. I'm sorry. Did you want to? Brett, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just asking about the if we need an extension, because I think it may be coming up. Just wanted to ask about that.
May 27. No.
No, 429. Yes, we need
429.
we need a 65-day extension. You willing to grant
Okay.
that, or otherwise we'll
Yes.
use the 90-day option? Okay.
Yeah, I would if I can right now, or do I need to submit a formal letter? But yeah, I would grant
the oral authorization and follow it up with either an email or something in writing is fine.
You can send an email to staff.
Yeah. Okay. I will do that.
Days.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is 2020-031, 82 Buckfield Lane, Matthew McCullough and Michael Grunberg for corrective action for fence construction within wetlands. Doreen, I know that I believe they're asking for a delay on this.
Right, yes, they want to delay it to the May agency meeting.
Okay, very good. Any agency questions for staff on this? Nope. Any members of the public wish to talk on this? No. Okay, I'll make a motion to delay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Galvin is second. I will discussion. Okay, I'll read the roll. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf.
Approve.
Mr. Rogers.
Approve.
Mr. Skoufalos.
Approve.
Ms. Curlin.
You're
Can't
muted.
hear you. Okay, there she is. And myself. I approve. Thank you.
Sign language, Norma.
I'd like to make just a mechanical comment. If you're muted, if you hold your space bar down, that takes you out of mute for the moment, as long as you hold your space bar down. So if you do it that way, you will be muted as soon as you take your finger off the space bar.
Oh. And he just took his finger off the space
Very
bar.
cool.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Elliot. Okay, next up. 2020-032, 11 Mayfair Lane, SE Minor and Company, Inc. for Stratton Properties, LLC, for a solar array 52 feet from wetlands. Mr. Clausy, please.
All right, let's see. Sorry, got the wrong staff report. I think the 52 feet was in relation to the original plan. The plan before you right now is the revised plan.
It's 41 feet.
Pardon me?
It's 41 now, right?
41. Yes. Originally the array was proposed over here. Would have required the removal of dozens of trees, some of them very large. The applicant was acted pretty quickly to revise their plan based on staff initial comments, and now have a plan to put the array up here, which is a more open area. And I recommend the agency issue a permit with the conditions provided in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Bob. It's like a nice piece of property. Okay, any questions from the applicant? Oh, Mr. Liebman has his hand raised. We will recognize him. Okay, Mr. Liebman. Oh, hold on. Unmute. Try it again. There you go. Larry, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. We have no objection to anything written in the staff report.
we think this is definitely a better location.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we do too. Excellent.
I have a procedural question, and I don't have my regulations in hand. So there are unpaid taxes associated with this property. Does that affect us, or that's only Bob? I'm not sure if you know, or only when when they go to get a building permit. I can't recall from our regulations if it.
I've never seen anything in wetlands regulations regarding unpaid taxes, and
I think it's at the building permit.
Yes, they won't be able to get a building permit without clearing themselves.
That is true.
Tax collector.
Okay.
That is correct. I will mention that to her tomorrow.
Okay. Excellent. Would someone like to make a motion on this application?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Galvin made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Rogers seconds. Okay, discussion. Okay, I will read the roll. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf. Hold that space bar down.
Approve.
Excellent.
All right, we're next.
Oh, good solar. Go solar.
Mr. Rogers. Mr. Skoufalos.
I am.
And Ms. Curlin.
Going to say the same thing I just said.
Larry, you're still on.
Sorry.
Close to a Zoom.
All right, and I am a yes as well. Okay. Very good. So it is approved. Okay, next up is 2020-043, 2 Vista Drive, SC Minor and Company for Shirley and Michael Wen for demolition and construction of single-family residence, driveway, septic system, drainage system, and watercourse modification. Mr. Clausy, if you'd be so kind.
All right. This redevelopment project proposes to build a house essentially a house and driveway and a septic system in essentially the same locations where they're currently located. There will be a little bit closer activity to the wetland corridor in front of the property with the modifications proposed to the garage motor court. But they are putting it kind of where it is right now, more or less. Now, the front wetland watercourse is a little bit eroded. They've got 4 concrete check dams running across that stretch of watercourse that are all leaking. At least the ones that I took a real close look at were leaking. So they want to repair the eroded banks and do some reinforcement around those concrete check dams. There are detailed plans in the plan set. I think it's a reasonable plan. They also have a planting plan to enhance this area. In the back, there's a little watercourse that daylights out of a pipe coming from that front watercourse. In order to put the new septic in and meet the health code, they're proposing to eliminate that northeastern 50 feet of watercourse that's sort of shaded on the plan and create a new watercourse segment just to the south, which will be more than 50 feet from the new septic, so it will be acceptable. The new watercourse will have larger area than the watercourse that's being eliminated. The watercourse that's being eliminated is not a very high functional watercourse wetland area. So, I mean, the new watercourse should replace and enhance those functions because it's going to be planted up and provide more area. The wetland in the north, along the northern property line, We'll also have plantings put around it. So I think the applicant has, made an attempt to enhance and wetland areas on the property while they work on their redevelopment. And this is one case where I think the watercourse relocation is reasonable. I have provided conditions of approval in my staff report, and I recommend the agency issue a permit.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Mr. Liebman is in the house. And you can unmute yourself, Larry. I will try that. Okay. There you go, Larry.
Hi, thank you. We have no objection to what's written in the staff report, and we actually think that we are going to be improving the area, and the watercourse will be in better shape when we're done.
Okay, very good. Any agency questions for Mr. Liebman? Okay, no. No public comments? No, I don't see any. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve, Joe Rogers.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
Second, Bill Galvin.
Mr. Galvin seconds. Discussion? Okay, I'll read the roll. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Schoendorf.
Approve.
Mr. Skoufalos. Mr. Skoufalos.
Approve, yes.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Ms. Curlin. There we go. Norma, you in?
Uh,
I
my
heard you say.
mouse has lost power.
Oh,
Yeah.
we can hear you. We can hear you. You're good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I concur as well. So
Okay.
it's approved. Okay. Very good. Okay, we have 5 applications to be received tonight. I will make a motion to receive applications 2020-047, 48, 51, 52, and 53 listed on tonight's agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll give that one to Jay, I think, this time. Very good. Mr. Benton.
Approve.
Mr. Galvin.
Approve.
Okay. Mr. Rogers.
Approve.
Mr. Skoufalos.
Yes.
Ms. Curlin. You can just give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay, there she is.
Do that too.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. And then we have no, this could be a first. We have no listed, oh, actually, I'm sorry, we have to go to the agent approval permits. Are there any questions on any of the agent approval permits listed on tonight's agenda 1 through 19?
No.
Any attendees? No. Okay. Bob, your hand's up. Is that a artifact? Can't hear you.
Right. I just wanted to point out that the last 3 agent approvals were actually received in this application period. So we did get 8 applications this month, not 5.
Ah, okay. Very good. So you want me to then the final 3 we want to receive as new applications then?
We don't need
46.
because they're agent approvals. It's
Okay.
more admissions.
Oh, very good. Very good. Okay.
I think Bob wanted to reflect the number of applications that came in this period was 8, which is more normal than.
Got it. Then 19. Or then 5, I'm sorry. Okay, very good. Okay, I'll ask for a motion on the agent approvals. Motion to approve. Is there a
So
second?
moved. Second.
Okay. Stefan seconds my motion. Mr. Benton.
Do we need to approve agent approvals?
You don't.
I know, we just always do it just for the hell of it.
Oh, then I'll approve it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not putting it in the minutes, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Scrap it. Very good. Nothing on violations this month, unless there's
So that
something
is
in here.
part due to the fact that we've been using the notice of violations rather than the cease and correct orders. So
Okay.
it might be one of those things that is a helpful tool to carry forward after
Very good.
lockdown.
Okay, and then we have other business. On tonight's agenda, IWWA 2019-157. Pat, do you want to speak to that briefly?
I'm actually going to turn that over to Bob. That was
Okay.
His application.
Okay.
Yes, this kind of got overlooked and was brought back to my attention by the property owner. This is 105 Dingletown Road. In 2019, we had 2 applications from this individual. Back in application 2019-87. This was an application made both to relocate part of common driveway and build a garage and some other stuff. And at that time, the applicant, Mr. Rom, paid a $5,000 application fee. That application review went for 130 days, and they could not work out a way to get the drainage to work with the whole thing as a package. So they withdrew the application. Then later that year, Mr. Rom reapplied just to do the driveway relocation portion. And both in my staff report and a supplemental report I wrote, I mentioned that he had requested the fee that he paid when he made that second application be waived because he'd paid the first one, and I supported that because I had done all the work for the first application. I only had to write a very simple staff report for the second application. And unfortunately, in the meeting where we discussed that application, I forgot to point that out in my staff report and ask you to consider waiving the $1,500 fee he paid. So
Okay.
I'm now asking on Mr. Rom's behalf, would you waive that $1,500 fee paid for application 2019-157?
Okay. Agency discussion. Otherwise, I'll make a motion. Okay. Bob, your fact that Mr. Rom paid the $5,000 prior, I think it's warranted to waive the $1,500. So I will make a motion to do that. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Elliot Benton.
Okay, Elliot seconds. Discussion on this matter? No? Okay. Then I'll call the roll. Mr. Galvin.
Yes.
Mr. Schoendorf.
Yes.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Skoufalos.
Yes.
Ms. Curlin.
Yes.
Okay, very good, and I concur as well. Very good. So that passes. Unless there is any other business, we stand adjourned. I think that this worked out pretty well,
Very good.
all things considered. So maybe we'll do this every other month for the heck of it going forward. But then we'd all have to go meet somewhere afterwards.
True.
That is true.
I'll volunteer my house next.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to the panelists, as well as thank you to the attendees. And we will see you next month.
Thank
All right.
Jenny
Stay
Bartlett,
safe, everyone.
Jones.
Thank you for all the staff for all the work they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you all.
Jenny.
Tremendous.
Good night, folks.
Okay. Stay safe,
Good night.
everyone.
Um,
Bye-bye.
9:54.